Hi, I'm Jake Bournet. I work for the Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy. Today we're out here at Lower Woodcock Lake Nature Preserve. I've got joining us Brad Gerlach, the Seeds Group, and also the Huron Pines AmeriCorps member serving with our organization. We're here in Benzie County at this preserve working on sustainable multi-use trail design.
This is the key in land management, right? Trails tell people where you want them to go, how you want them to use the property. This is sandy loam, emphasis on sand. So it's delicate soil. So if you don't come in and direct people where to go, then you're gonna have everybody else who wants to build bandit trail because they're not satisfied with what they're seeing. And the problem is, from a use perspective, once people get used to something else and you try to take that away, then all of a sudden you have resistance. This is the first step at saying to people, here's the proper way to use this property for the best enjoyment and for the protection of the resource, right? And that's different on every property.
One of the first things that we do when we get a new piece of property is a botanical survey. And so we're out looking for sensitive, unique species for a property. And the idea is to avoid those areas. We want to get people out, we want to get people access to nature, we want to get people out here experiencing things. But the whole idea of sustainable trail design is to get people out on the properties without impacting those natural features. Once we've kind of done that assessment, the ecological assessment of the property, the next thing to do is kind of look and see what the property has given us as far as topography goes. Actually, we look at some aerial imaging or some satellite imaging, try to get an idea of where the steepest points are, trying to avoid those. But then also looking for the features of the property that people are going to want to see. Once you get out, you figure out a route. We'll go through and we'll pin flag actually where we want the trail to be, and we'll start picking away at segments that way. But once we got the trail laid out, everything's pin flagged, the first thing you have to do is just clear the corridor. And so clearing the corridor is as easy as it sounds. That's just getting branches and sticks out of the way. The general rule is you want to be 6 feet wide and 8 feet high. So if you kind of spread your arms out and up, that kind of gives you an idea of how clear you want the corridor to be. Once you get all the sticks and branches out of your way, the next thing to do is working on the organic material and trying to pull the leaf litter off of the trail to get down to the soils that we want. Once the trail corridor is cleared, you start working the soil, and so you're getting now into trail bed work. And depending on the location, there's flat work, which is exactly what it sounds like, areas that don't have a lot of topography, and then there's areas that need a bench cut, which is what you can see here. And so the bench cut is where we're working on a side slope, taking material from one edge and creating your walking bed. This is a decent example of what a bench cut would look like, cutting into a side slope, creating the 2-foot trail bed and allowing water to sheet off the sides and not pool up in the middle of the trail.
Ideal tool makeup for you guys with crews on a normal build like this, right? So you've got a cutting tool, like a Rogue Hoe. You've got a finishing tool, 1 or 2 McLeods for a little heavier if you want it. A couple of the tillers, like the Garden Weasel, you would want out there. The best tools that you can take for the corridor clearing, because you can put them in your pockets, folding saw, and actually hand clippers, because they can both go in pockets, because you're going to be carrying 2 in their hands, 2 in their pockets, okay? That's your kind of your full complement when you're thinking about it. So a couple of people will have tillers, rakes. Everybody, unless somebody can't swing it, needs a cutting tool if you're going to be doing bench, right? Because that's the one tool that you can't fake. So let's talk order of operations, so to speak, guys, okay? So we're going to be clearing this corridor pretty flat. You guys have walked through it, right? So the first thing, the fastest thing, is getting the wood off of the ground, right? So the first wave that goes out, usually have someone with the chainsaw, okay? I saw a couple of you have decent sized folding saws. So you always have at least one person, or depending on your size, a group that goes out first, gets this kind of stuff off the bed, cuts anything out of the way, right? They're dealing with the ground, nothing else, because they are faster. That's why you start them out first, okay? Because otherwise they're gonna compress into a different group. going through, okay? Next group is the trimming, okay? And really guys, it's not rocket science. It's like I said, it's 6 wide, 8 high if you can get it. So yeah, we go all the way back, get to the collar and cut there. And make sure that nobody's standing under it when you do that. And then guys, there's a little trick when you're doing this. This cut edge is super conspicuous. You know that somebody did something, right? Turn it away from the trail. That's what we're doing, is we want to tell people where we want them. We don't want them here, we want them here. And this could get hidden. So think about, you know, can we put a couple branches here, whatever that will say to someone, I don't want to walk over there, I want to go there.
Once we've cleared the trail corridor, the next step is to remove the leaf litter. And so when we're removing leaf litter, it's important that we're not going too wide. We're trying to maintain just that 2-foot distance. So we'll rake material out a little bit, and then you want to make sure that all of this leaf litter that you're pulling out, you can make sure it's spread out off the trail corridor and not build up in clumps, which will hold water and impact the trail. So once you get that top layer down, the next thing you want to do is try to find the soil. So you still start scraping some of this organic material out. You're looking for clumps of organic material, pulling that out and trying to get down to this dark soil, but not too deep where you're getting down to the real sandy stuff.
What we're finding, of course, is that there's a heavy organic layer, which means that we are going to have to score this somewhat with the cultivators, tiller, etc. Because you can see this will never set up, how punky this is, how soft it is. There's the actual dirt, it's right there. That's what we need to get to. So the best way to score the ground, again, is like we've been showing, is that the cultivator, I use a hand one, there's, you know, the bigger tiller, etc. This will set up nicely. And I can do this at the end to just gently, and I leave it then, and then trail traffic will walk it in. See how much firmer that is? I sink, I don't sink. So bench cut is the process by which you traverse a slope in a sustainable way, right? Usually on a 2-track, it'll just go, maybe not down that 2-track because equipment would roll, but if you guys been in the woods down 2 tracks, you know what they're gonna do. Our idea, right, with the bench cut, this is how you sustainably get down slopes. You're building on the side of the slope, right? What you're always working with, right? The constant challenge as a designer and a builder is water, right? That's the thing you've got to account for. So the bench cut you build into the side of the slope. You cut the face at the angle, right? This tool, if you just drop it, it drops at the angle you want that face, right? Then you make the bench, slight bit of drop on that bench. That's where people walk. You want that about 2 foot wide, okay? Once you get that open. This trail is going to catch water. What you want then is that water to do what? Go down the slope. Some of it can be absorbed by the trail, great, it's good for the trail, and the rest of it keeps going down. What you don't want it to do is go down your trail, because what happens? Middle of that trail, you end up with a rivulet, then a cut, and then it collapses center in. And if you're here, what that means is you've just sanded out your trail. Now, if you guys have been on trails, what happens when there's a sand patch? People try to get around it, and it gets wider, and it gets wider. And then your ecological damage it can be very significant. So let's talk a little bit about tools. Primary tool for bench cut is a cutting tool. You need at least 6 feet of spacing regardless for swinging tools, okay? When we start swinging, we'll talk a little bit more about this, but you want to use minimal effort, the minimal effort you can get to get the soil to move. It's really a drop and pull. It's not a bam. We're fortunate here that we don't have clay because clay requires more of a bam, okay? Here it's pretty much drop it in, drag it out. Make sure that where you're swinging, you can't see a pretty good sized stick or a rock visible. Doesn't mean you're not going to hit one. Swing from the side, not like this for obvious reasons, because if that thing skips, you're gonna catch it somewhere bad.
So you want to get down to some of this sandy loam, kind of straight sandy loam, and none of this organic material. You can leave a little bit in there, and what'll happen is when people are walking the trail and you know, compacting the trail, some of that stuff will just naturally come out of the trail bed. And then so this is your bench, and then this is going to be the trail bed. So what we want to do is make sure that this part is kind of matching the angle of the slope.
And then be careful about getting in lower on this side, because that will catch the water and then you'll start to have the run right across the face.
One of the final things that we do once we've got everything built and we're trying to do some final detail work, we come back after we're done. We look for little things like roots popping up out of the trail bed, and we want to make sure we're removing all those. When you're thinking about detail work, when you're trying to make your last minute adjustments, a good time to come out is after a rain event, and you'll be able to see where the potential washout sites are, where the potential problem sites are, and then you come back through with your detail work and try to adjust that trail bed so that you're minimizing those issues.
So finish work, you know, on this bed, in this area, see now the bed's not super well defined, so this is still gonna need some flat work to make sure that we've got a wide enough bench in there. Sometimes you'll go through and find out once you clear off the low side, see how much material's been collected up here. You can't really tell how wide this trail bed is, if you can catch how much higher this is. Ideally, we want 24 inches, you can get down to about 18. If this comes off and we're too narrow, which we are now, this is only about 14, then we're gonna have to take more material off in here to make sure we get the width. This is not uncommon, you can't see it because the material, you know, that's built up on the low side because we've had to take all this out of the hillside. And yes, feet are tools too. I do more leveling with my feet than anything else.
While there are many aspects of trail building not covered here today, we hope that it encourages you to get out, learn more about multi-use trail design, and come out and join us in a trail building opportunity near you. Thanks for watching. For more information, please visit our website at gtrlc.org.